off last time. So maybe just to bring you back to where we were last week, we kind of started with the definition of public-public partnership. Then had a typology of public partnerships, and that is really where we kind of stopped. And today I want to really then start what is actually the role of public partnerships, public-public, and international examples, benefits and issues, and the current and future landscape of this. And for this, we will have to scroll a little bit through the Panopto, because I haven't figured out how to do this diligently. Hello, Jonas. So this is where we are now. Why public sector alliances? Why do we need them? In other words, the objectives of PUPs. Well, I didn't want to say it the proper way, but normally the reason for starting into a public-public partnership is not so much what we had in the private alliance or joint venture attempt of kind of having shared objectives, but often it's more like kind of looking where you can share resources. So this is a major difference. In the public sector, we may have completely different objectives, like what is a good example? Department of Work and Pensions, so they are interested in paying you decently for your contributed trust in them and paying taxes, and they want to give you a wonderful retirement life and things like that. Whilst they, for example, share certain resources with the Department of Innovation, University and Skills, which has completely other kind of objectives. But again, it makes sense for them to, for example, share resources, because they kind of have the same hub. So, for example, now slightly controversial, they share, for example, certain databases, which may raise certain issues, but nonetheless. So this would be an example. So why partnerships? More resources, more impact as well. So often they have a wider remit. If you kind of look at public sectors, they often have regional data or very purpose filtered data, and it can enlarge. I'm talking here the whole time about data, but impact goes far beyond that, of course. Then more efficiency potentially, so that they can do something in the same routine instead of bombarding you with individual services. They may have a package approach, one-stop shop, something like that. Then more innovation. They may see synergies. They may be able to collaborate, integrate new technologies. Very controversial example, 2 years ago, the Revenue Office tried to do that. Who knows the story? How much did it cost? It was supposed to cost something like $500,000. Does anybody know? It went wrong. So does anybody know how much it cost in the end? Because it went wrong, $2 billion. This is where we start. This is where okay, it didn't work out that well. But anyway, the possibility was there. You have as well more skills, and more equitable services, more negotiation power as well. So you leverage your power and kind of stakeholder attribute as well. And then you have as well more benefits for disadvantaged groups. So you can, for example, in the UK, it's often a targeted approach that you can as well target in a remit that is meaningful actually to what you're trying to achieve, instead of just having your kind of aims and objectives that you're competing against. So this is actually quite powerful. Now, a famous example is the Audit Commission highlight. This is still the framework. This comes actually from the Audit Commission, why particular agency develop partnerships. And here by agencies, they include as well, like we had already, unions, for example, or agencies that actually serve, for example, the public sector. So you may remember we had the term quangos there. It's kind of businesses run to solely fulfill the purpose for the public sector in the interaction with the private sector, for example. So that those are these agencies that are referred to coordinate packages of services to individuals. So sometimes go as well the extra mile, going behind the public remit and provide a really meaningful service to customers. then to tackle so-called wicked issues. What are wicked issues? Well, what is a wicked issue? Does anybody know? I take guesses. There is no, I mean, there's a dictionary definition, but there are different definitions for wicked issues.
There's an author that I was reading on, he uses wicked as like, kind of like a negative term in projects and like leadership and stuff, so wicked is kind of like a poor outcome or something. Is that right?
Yeah, so there is a negative connotation, but what is it? Is it you have the problem and that's it, and okay, you solve it, you're fine?
Is it difficult issues that people are more difficult, so they don't try to resolve them?
Yeah.
Is a guess.
Yeah, so wicked issues is normally something that kind of carries on. It's not one problem. It's actually, initially it's one problem, but it kind of creates other knock-on problems. So it's normally associated with complexity. Yeah, so if you do the wrong solution and you kind of solve it, then it normally starts popping up and again. So this is the notion of the wicked issue. Yeah. So wicked issues is, for example, a conceptual. So this is again controversial. So in the news, you may have seen that they were thinking about the benefit system in the UK. There is a belief that it would be better to just give benefits to people that try reapplying for work. Yeah. So this would be one. So the idea is you encourage people to consistently try to go into employment. Now, this is a wonderful idea, but it has a knock-on effect. That means that people have to consistently be assessed if they're actually doing so. And it created a lot of additional bureaucracy. So what it was intended to do turned actually out to be a nightmare, and it had a lot of knock-on effects. And actually we see that at the moment in the system. And I think the current political party has actually removed it again. They've tried to easen it. Yeah? And well, there are wonderful examples of wicked issues. We actually have one later on in our case study. We go to South Africa and look at water supplies. That's a project very close to my heart. It's as well to reduce impact of organizational fragmentation. Yeah, so you come together. Often in departments, you can see that they divide. Actually, I wrote a paper about this. It's terrible for project management, yeah, because you have to introduce yourself to 20 different organizations if you want to work holistically together. And then you see actually the interface becomes very complicated because they have all very narrow targets. And if you want to hit them all, it's often very difficult. So again, partnerships can actually allow shared targets that give a more user-friendly interaction. Yeah. So in projects, for example, mega projects, this is a typical problem. So the Crossrail project, so this is what we would talk about there. Yeah, you can make notes now and ask that question. Yeah, how do you make a mega project actually more biddable and accessible to small to medium-sized enterprises? You want, of course, the local population being part of a project like that, having the ownership, making a wonderful rail link that when you sit in the train, you think, look at the French with the TGV. It's not fast. We have the fastest now. Yeah, this is kind of, I don't know. Yeah, so this was an example. We could pick as well the Germans. Look at the ICE. Well, it's so slow now. Yeah, and look at us. Yeah, so this is the idea. But in reality, those mega projects, who can bid for them? Yeah, it's large companies because it is so fragmented. Yeah, and that is kind of the problem. Yeah, you have to talk to all the different stakeholders, and you are kind of bankrupt before you have started the project. Yeah, because it costs a lot of resources to invest. Oh yeah, sorry, it brings me to my next point as well. To bid for or gain access to new resources, it's again sharing and making the interface. So basically avoiding duplication. Yeah? If you have fragmentation, then you duplicate a lot of the processes too. Yeah? So this is quite important to recognize. And to meet statutory requirements. Yeah, so this is particular in some countries, fragmentation can actually undermine that. Yeah, so this is quite interesting. So with this we come actually to, if you look at the objective of the yeah, how do I say that nicely? I think the proper term to say it is actually PUBs. Yeah. So we just go with that. Objectives of PUBs vary from those related to service delivery, wider political objectives to those related to private interests. In some countries, you have it actually in the UK, you will see we have kind of a segregation there, yeah? Or we have separated the activities into different responsibilities that are held accountable to the parliament and to the people. Yeah? In other countries, we still have that centralized. Yeah, it may be just a person providing it. If you want to see very interesting documentary on it at the moment, Storyville on iPlayer, if you have it, yeah, about China, about a city that is being built and the mayor just being accountable for the whole city development. Yeah. A single person. So a fascinating example. There you have sent the example where it's still kind of monopolized towards one person, what is normally unfolded. And we have all the hybrids in between. Yeah? This has not so much to do with the political system necessarily or the country you're in. There are all kind of factors where you see the different styles there. Yeah? The most commonly stated objective of PUBs is the achievement of greater efficiency. This includes improving coverage and access and ensuring greater equity is the right term, yeah, in service delivery, and another frequently stated objective is as well the capacity building. Yeah, so it means as well the attractiveness of the infrastructure, cities you're living in. You know, this can be capacity for you. Do you see the full potential of what you can do in the northeast? Yeah, the hiking, when the sunshine is out there, all the options that you have there. So, and even if it rains, all the options you have. Yeah, so this could be that as well. And they do that by building institutions, or more specifically by enhancing worker skills. So this is quite pragmatic, aimed at like business. But you could see it as well the other way around, cultural diversity, yeah? or social welcoming. You have access to what's available. Yeah? So this is actually quite powerful. Now here you have as well typology. Yeah, so on one we have the service efficiency and effectiveness. So here the subtypes is often improved efficiency for service delivery, improved coverage and access to services. So you see that, for example, in this region we have Newcastle working under, I think, twisted arms together with Gateshead, yeah, on a more recent one. So this has to do with Skills Academy and colleges here in the region. Yeah, but I'm joking about this. They of course love to work together. Yeah, and then you have as well promotion of equity and service delivery. So partnerships to look what works well in one. I learned I say the word wrong. Region, I guess, is a good exchange against municipality. How do you say it, Robert?
Municipal.
No, municipal.
Municipal.
Okay, you notice.
It's
an impossibility for me. So we just go with region, yeah, or area. Yeah. So the different areas can then kind of benchmark what works well for them and maybe adapt it. Yeah? So this is often very beneficial. Then we have as well the capacity development and human resources. So you will see that UK, for example, is a very aggressive country in this. They really advertise like world-class skills and elite energy infrastructure for 2015. Yeah? So they are really out there, and they kind of advertise that to the big multinational corporations, and they are not the only ones. Yeah, famous examples as well at the moment for financial markets, for example, Singapore, Dubai, yeah, Sochi, yeah, they are now in the business too. Yeah, again, like interesting dynamics, especially on the city finance market area. Yeah, and yeah, other areas can be as well defense against privatization. Yeah, so this is as well quite interesting. So particularly in countries that kind of have a deep tradition of people and social system or commune-oriented politics, you will see they often go as well into partnerships to kind of provide services. So a good example in Germany, yeah, my research institute that I worked for after graduating with my Master of Engineering in Germany, I worked in the German Federal Institute of Material Research and Testing. And this was completely tax funded, and it was a ridiculous institute to work in. There was no teaching going on. It was just an institute. We had 2,000 professors that were professors in other universities as well, Great Britain, America, Japan, you name it. They were all coming there to do their research, and they did all the testing and standardization there. And then there's a major facility funded by the tax man. So that there were never money issues. So that's very another interesting reason why many work there. But this is of course a luxury that some societies deem desirable, and it was as well defended against privatization. So quite interesting. Then you have as well accountability and participation. So particular when certain divisions of power are desirable. So you may not want the policing or the enforcing force to be the same that makes kind of the judgments. There's often then, it's considered that the French had like a few years ago, when I say years, 100 years ago, they kind of came up with that model, and a lot of countries still buy into that to a degree. So here we have the incorporation of civil society organizations and trade unions in service planning and delivery. Sometimes those are actually still the public ends. Now this is as well possible. Improved transparency and accountability in service delivery is another one. So there is still this feeling that it's not yet open. So with the marketization, there was as well an agreement to let the market decide, instead of like maybe small groups that represent. And the hybrids still exist, of course. And then many other objectives too. So this was just an example really from the paper that I haven't referenced. So this is poor practice, but it's in the further reading. You will see it's a paper basically that is facilitating PPPs. What is that? Yeah.
Not sure about that.
Yeah, but it was. I mean, what I kind of heard was right. So it's public-private partnerships. And it kind of comes from the commercialization of a lot of services that were in the past done by the government in the UK. And they're spread worldwide. It's a very popular thing in countries all over the world. So basically using private companies to deliver the infrastructure and running it as well. In addition, the objectives of the partners in a pub do not have to be the same. So this is again the key. I hinted at already. So they don't have to be the same. Different partners may have different objectives. This is very important to recognize. Now, typical pubs activity have to do with reforming and democratizing decision making and planning. So this is often you have an accountable board that agrees to the decisions. So you basically just provide the information. You inform the board representing the parties that have interest in this with the reliable information, and respectively they basically provide a common interest based decision. And with that comes as well institutional and human capacity building, including, oh, wait a minute. I've just realized that you have a terrible experience here. So, there we go. Sorry, my apologies. So institutional and human capacity building, this includes as well training of managers and workers to boost capacity, and public sector ethos, including integrity, equity, clarity, accountability, transparency, openness, and cooperation and evaluation. Now, I treat that with a little bit care. This is kind of very UK, America, Australia, so what is in literature Anglo-Saxon fields accounted for. Yeah, you would say that some of that may actually be already private. Yeah, in many countries you see actually that training or sometimes even schools are actually led by companies. Yeah? This is traditionally normally how training facilities and schools came about. This was just later that was actually kind of taken into a public remit. Yeah, you still see that in the infrastructure and the names. In the UK, does anybody know the Nuffield Foundation? Nuffield? Some people not. Well, what do you know Nuffield for?
It's health, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, health. So they have hospitals. They have their own hospitals. Very true. What else are Nuffield famous for? Does anybody know what they actually kind of became big with? What product did they manufacture? It came with gears and had a steering wheel and worked very well on racing courses. It's cars. Yeah. That is where they came from. And they built kind of the first cars around the beginning of the 20th century, became a multinational company and started developing around their factories, villages. So they built schools, kind of the infrastructure to keep the employees happy. And as well hospitals. Yeah, this is where they come from. They have now moved out of that, yeah, and they are heavily now influencing politics and yeah, so they do all that. Yeah, they do as well training, educational standards, things like that. Health, there's a whole raft of things. Similar examples in Germany, Bayer, yeah, the Bayer villages, or SAP has as well their own cities. So it's slightly Google, same thing. You name it. So in China, the construction company CCCP, wait a minute, CCCP, they have the same. Yeah, they have actually a whole city where they kind of provide accommodation and education. And it's actually pretty decent standard, the education. Yeah, like if they apply here to study here, they would be accepted straight away because they have a very high condition, very high quality of education system. Yeah. I say straight away they have to have the marks too, yeah, so that's the minimum. But anyway, so that's to give you a little bit an idea and maybe see that a little bit in perspective. Then you have as well managerial consulting, training and capacity building again as one of the typical activities. Then administrative support, including working conditions, salaries, benefits, and supervision of outside contracting. So in the past we had those public agreements on certain agreed skills. They would have a minimum pay. Yeah? The leftovers are still with people like me. I belong to, I don't belong, but I'm associated as teacher, lecturer in higher education. Yeah, so you can figure out on the salary setting, yeah, of how much I earn, how much I could earn in London, how much I could earn in Scotland, and how much I could earn in Wales. You can compare that and see and write me a letter if you think I deserve that. Or it should be less, you know, something like that. I'm always interested in that. Yeah. Yeah, and then last but not least, it's as well maintenance, including repair, replacement of equipment. So this may be infrastructure that they are running, so streets, well, general infrastructure. But in the past as well, hospitals, schooling systems, and yeah, we have examples like that as well.
Well, when you use the term pub, are you talking about a public partnership with the private sector, or is it a public partnership of any description?
So this is public partnerships, pubs. So and we defined that last week.
Yeah.
So this was kind of it can be as well third sector. So this was where the ambiguity was created. All the quangos, quasi-governmental organizations that are in reality private. Or as well training, so all of those. So as well training providers that just provide training, for example, for the public sector. This would go as well into the pubs literature. Yeah. Yeah. And ethos as well. Yeah. So things like sustainability and the environmental agenda that we see a lot. Yeah, this is as well supporting social enterprises potentially that would classify as such too. So with this you have as well financial planning, social tariff setting. So this is as well, you kind of determine what people can afford. So actually public transport is a popular one. But what do you think about the prices here of bus or metro? Is it fair? Is it money for value? Too high, too low? Have you used it? First question, have you used a public transport? Yeah, okay, some people not. my personal highlight in experience was great laughter at the same time as fascination was riding on the bus number 1. Yeah, if you take that from here to Coach Lane Campus, just as an experience, I can recommend it. You will see that a double-decker can go through roads that I personally didn't think are fit for actually going with the car through it. They will zoom through it, and it's a little bit like a roller coaster rider, but I'm joking. But there was this experience for me, so I found it fascinating. But what about the prices? Is it expensive? Is it cheap?
Quite expensive.
Quite expensive. Okay. So and how do you compare this? Is this just like for taking the bus? You consider like this is so much I'd rather walk.
No, there's no real comparison for it. When you go to London, then biking prices are good, but most people are staying down there.
Okay, so against London, no chance. Newcastle is actually cheap against London, but
Really
still the
expensive.
perception is it's too expensive. Yeah. Okay. How about others? Yeah. So this is actually publicly agreed. Yeah. So this was actually decided in kind of a council cluster. Yeah. That kind of caters for this, and they have set the price limit. Yeah, and then substitute what it costs more. And the public sector has gradually moved out. So arguably, those providers run it now at a profitable basis, which means that the profit is already tailored in. They run it basically on a cost basis. In a lot of societies, you have actually that agreements are made to have it cheaper. Has anybody used public transport in Manchester or maybe Leeds?
Leeds.
Yes? Similar prices?
I think so. No. Yeah, I think so. I don't recall them feeling different.
I think it's cheaper, right? It's under £1. No? Well, what did you use? Sorry, did you use the subway or the bus?
I got the bus.
Okay, but that must have been under £1, right?
Uh-oh.
Okay, so last time I was there, I have to admit this is 2009, but they basically still had substituted transport, same like Manchester. So they had actually a hearing locally, so they substituted, so it should be a lot cheaper. Yeah? And in some countries, it's completely ridiculous, it's just for free. Does anybody know where that is? Where's public transport for free? You may have had it before. Has anybody been to Shanghai? Did anybody use the Baglev? Oh, you miss again out of the great transport opportunities. So in some cases, they have just basically made it as a package. As long as you have a ticket, you can basically waive it, and then you are on it for free. It's arguably the same if you use a train, right? If you buy a train and you come to Newcastle, you can use the what is the inner city circle of the metro for free. I mean, it doesn't get you far, but it would get you to Haymarket, for example, I think. No? Okay, nobody reads the fine print. I was fascinated by it. I have to say that the last mayor was actually a colleague of us. So he was a reader here at the university, so that was a past mayor of Newcastle. This is why I looked a little bit into this, but I was quite fascinated by it. Okay, so there were a few examples already, but let's dive a little bit more into the international examples, because that is the cool stuff. And as we do with good international examples, we start with the UK partnering history. Now, this was one of the export hits of the UK. So even like countries with a long history of big infrastructure and just general public projects were suddenly looking over to England and thought like, oh, this is interesting, maybe we should adopt that. Does anybody know what it was about? How did it start? Do you know this? The partnering history. Why did we suddenly think that partnering may be a great idea? Okay, so there was a feeling that a lot of public sector had little money to spend to really do the right projects that were needed, for the society. Yeah, so normally out of a financial constraint in the public purse, you would consider maybe doing a partnering with the private sector or compensate basically for resource shortage. So here partnering working became an important theme during the conservative 1990s, but was driven particularly forcibly by the policy of the last Labour administration. So this is a little bit history, just took the snippets, but this was partly driven by the need to coordinate public services that had been fragmented by a generation of outsourcing and the breakup of large public providers. So it was really a political interest initially, but it caught on. So here's an example. There are instances in the UK where a number of district councils have combined to use shared internal audit service, municipal. Okay, yeah, this word, yeah. And health authorities have pooled their budgets in overlapping areas of social service responsibility, and neighboring municipalities have merged their building, refuse collection, and refuse collection and vehicle maintenance departments. This is still a hot topic, with as well recycling, where we see actually that this is still a current topic, that you still see around the world. In some nations, this has gone completely private, with recycling to private providers. In other places, it has gone completely national. And we have here kind of a hybrid in between in the UK. So a very interesting example. There are also examples of central government agencies working together to deliver services. For example, the pension service, TPS, and disability carer service were brought together into a new executive agency of the Department for Work and Pensions. So fascinating there. In April 2008, the new agency, the Pension, Disability and Carer Service, DPCS, is however largely invisible to the customer, as at the local level the TPS and the DCS brands are still in operation. This is well so that clients basically recognize the department that they're dealing with. So there's again a brand value, ironically, behind that. So it's a very interesting one. And in this time we had as well a lot of fragmentation of a lot of departments, which is interesting. Now in Europe, if you look a little bit wider, you can see as well the European Union has paid particular attention to cross-border cooperation. So this is CBCs between public authorities and neighborhood or neighboring countries. There are specific funds and policy groups that set up support, such as partnerships, such as European cross-border regions created at UEA level. These CBEs consist of vertical and horizontal policy networks structured according to the institutions and actors involved. Now, actually the European Union has a lot of those that are very flat, so they don't have actually the matched kind of fragmentation of institutions that we have here in the UK. So one very famous one that you would kind of see advertised everywhere is the European Social Fund. It's on the metro, and you can see it as well in a lot of infrastructure that has been built here. So the European Social Fund was not just for the public sector, but as well for private sector. So I have as well a dear friend that actually started like his business on that basis. He was very much interested in kind of creating a social enterprise and a training and community center, and basically got the money. From the European Social Fund. And I think some of you have as well experience with this probably. It's a how did you perceive the process? Is it easy to get or to work with the?
It's very bureaucratic, because it obviously has to hit the certain criteria for funding itself.
Yeah.
I think we're more concentrated on outcomes. I know it's just a word, but outcomes more than outputs. Yeah. All our funding.
You have to kind of hit your kind of quota annually outputs or the outcomes. Sorry, that you are setting.
It's a bit fluffy.
Yeah. Yeah, and what's kind of conflicting is if you apply here for it in the UK, in some departments they use that. So then you kind of comply to your department's criteria, and then hidden to this you get as well the criteria from the European Union that you can fill too. So it's associated what was branded in the employer forums as red tape, or it's perceived a lot of bureaucracy. Yeah. So so there's a plus and minus to this, but again, it has enabled a lot of undertakings to be done, or entrepreneurial endeavors. Yeah. So under that point, quite interesting. Here, this was a partnership. So in Central and Eastern Europe, a new trend in making international connection has sparked twinning, for example, agreements and mutual information sharing visits, usually with municipalities.
Say Munich.
Pardon?
Say Munich.
Oh, you want to? Let's do this after the lecture.
Yeah,
and nearby countries with a shared. I just replace it with region from now on. This works as well. These connections create new elements in international policy networks. Yeah. So there's interesting example. Does anybody know who the twin cities are? For example, for Newcastle. It's written on the sign when you drive in from the from Tynemouth, for example, into the city, or as well from the south, from Gateshead. Those are the strange flags that you kind of see under "Welcome to Newcastle," and then you see like little flags with strange names where nobody knows what it's from. Now, a really funny one. And don't use Google Translate, because otherwise this goes terribly wrong. Is I think was and has a partnership with Aschaffenburg in Germany. Yeah, so this is when you leave from Newcastle, kind of on the A1058 towards Tynemouth or Moorfields. You basically see the sign just behind the bridge, and just. It's a very long name, you will notice this, but if you type that into Google, it brings up terrible, confusing concepts. So that is always very entertaining. But they have a partnership, and they work on aspects of recreational space. So this is quite interesting. So they share best practice, or they basically came for a visit to Aschaffenburg to look how they are basically creating infrastructure for cultural lifestyle in the community, and I'm pretty sure it was, and tried to basically copy this, more or less, or they put incentives in place to encourage local entrepreneurs to step into this area to make it available to the local population too. Yeah. So interesting. If you're interested in that, certainly worth researching. Now there's further international partnerships. So in the US, there is a type of partnership termed a revolving fund, set up by the US federal government for the different regions, which benefit from the better credit rating for higher institutions. So here the type of funding relationship also been advocated by a number of bodies as a way of facilitating regional borrowing in developing countries. And what's quite interesting, you have even in Silicon Valley things like IBM and Google actually went on public partnership funds and kind of developed the infrastructure to become a business. So they use as well money like this to kind of start up as a support service before actually starting going into business. There are also government regions, partnerships to develop housing in declining communities. In Pennsylvania, US, a bond issued by a city with a good credit rating of financial capital expenditure on schools run by school boards with a low financial capacity. So these partnerships allow us well development where otherwise they may not be eligible for. Similar arrangements are as well in Canada and other places, so the examples are there. We have as well other international partnerships. Actually, this is one we will work through. This is the water supply in South Africa, and this was together with the Swedish Union, but this is a case study we'll look at. If you want to have different pubs in Africa as well, Alex has done with I think it was actually UNESCO that did this research. They have kind of mapped out successful pubs. So this is certainly as well something investigating. Effectiveness, we will look at that in the seminar. Did you have any questions so far? Okay, in the seminar we will look at the South African example with the water supply, very interesting one, and how they actually work together. This is pubs and as well as third sector. So this is a little bit an edging example, but a very good case study. Yeah. Okay, thank you very much.